Hello, my name is Joanne Knight. Welcome to the barn. It's time for row 4 on my Pay It Forward quilt, and this row has 3 blocks in it. And I started to say this is my sad row, and I'll explain to you why in just a minute, but it's really not. So I'm going to say this is my sweet memory row. I'm going to remind you again that if you missed row 1, 2, or 3, you can go to my website and find those in the free Barn Buddies. So let's talk about row 4. You can see that I'm beginning to have quite a bit of white space in row 4. The layout that I finished with is this one right here. This is Sarah Terrell's block, and Sarah Terrell has gone on to live with Jesus, and I am so pleased that she made this block for me because she signed it, and so now when I look at it, I can remember her. If you look at this one, and I am going to hit copy, and I'm going to copy this layout right here for this block. I'm going over to the design group where I have a picture of that block, and I really didn't realize until I started to film this that I didn't have a good picture of that block, so I had to drag the quilt out. I'm going to hit paste, and I'm going to paste this on top. Let me size it down for you until it fits. What I want to explain to you on this one is this is one that I may have done a little bit differently. If I were doing the quilt today, I would probably do this a little different. I'm going to hit F3 and I'm going to take that image down until it's not quite as intense as it is right here. This frame on the outside I loved because it fit the mood of the quilt. I did do stitch in the ditch around this curve right here, and remember this was 3 years ago, so we were just beginning to get draw arc, and draw arc made it so much easier to do. The layout doesn't show the radiating lines that are quilted in the center of this quilt, so what that did was hold it down a little bit. I did do a double bat on this one, so this little area right in here from the Celtic out to the edges where I put the pattern was not that much space, but if I had to do it over again, I would go to the treble, and I do say treble because it would take a little bit. I would take these radiating lines and probably put them in this outside area right here, not make them real close together so it would just give definition to that double batting that I did. So that one I would probably do a little bit different if I were doing it today. And part of the lesson there is you can always look back at the ones you did early on when you first started with your stitcher and do something different with them, or say that I would do something different with them, but understand that it's all a journey and it's all a learning process. So just move on to the next one and learn something new. The next one that we're going to talk about, and I kind of started in the middle, is this one on this side right here. This block was made by Lynn O'Neill, and she did a crazy quilt kind of block. And what I love is that she put a note in there saying that it was my love of things crazy that led her to do this block right here. And I love that. I kept the note. I wanted to do something really different in this. Whenever you get these kind of quilts and you think, what in the world I'm going to do with them? A lot of times what folks recommend is that you just put an edge to edge on it because it's a very busy block. It's very busy fabric. So if you put an edge to edge on it, it's going to give it a nice quilting job because the quilting is not really going to show. And this is a real good example of where the quilting doesn't really show. It just added texture to this particular block. Again, this was my quilt. I wanted to take it over the top. So let me paste the layout for this one so that you can see what it's going to look like on that block. And you can see that these are all patterns that I did individually because I did a copy and paste. Let me take that image down some. Because I did a copy and paste, they combine to one pattern, but whenever I lay them on there, each one of these sections were done individually. So you can see how that gives it a little bit of texture. I have the curlies that divide out the two sections, or what I thought were the two sections. I have the little lollipop pattern right here that is the pearl on the end of a piano key, and it's mimicked by this pearl with the piano keys on the left side. So that's where you take your eye from one side to the left side, and the elements are pretty much the same. The next block that was on this particular row is this block right here, and this is the second reason why I said this was my sad quilt, because I don't know who made this block. There were several blocks that were done and they were not signed, so I don't really have any idea who made this particular block. When you look at the block, this is what it looked like, and because I had this texture in these flying geese, I wanted to mimic the left side. You can see that I've got the geometric triangle pattern on the left side, and I have the same geometric triangle pattern on the bottom, but on the top and on the right side, I went a little different and went with a curvy pattern. So that way, the left side anchors it down and the right side gives it a little bit more curve to it. F3 is the shortcut that I'm using to take that image picture down some. I'm going to paste the layout over this one the way that I did with the other ones. I'm going to place it right there on top. And you can see how those patterns fit in. The inside part of it had little curves, but it also had straight lines. So it seemed to bring the right side and the left side together. If I take this pattern, this copy of these patterns, and move it over to the side, you can see where I had all of these jump stitches, and I did. I had a lot of jump stitches on this one. I could make the flying geese sew continuously on the left side. I could make it sew continuously on the bottom and on the other two sides, but the rest of it, all these patterns had to be put in individually. So that was going to be some time well spent to me on my quilt. On a customer quilt, not really, not so much. If I go back to the layout on row 4, you can see what the entire row looked like. Again, this curvy triangle is Joyce Lundrigan's triangle that went in all of the big dark triangles that went throughout the quilt. So that's row 4 and how I did that one.